I think I'm an abuser. I think I might need help. I was 24 years old when, for the first time in my life, I found myself in a relationship. It happened almost suddenly, as if the universe had nudged me forward into a moment I wasn't entirely sure I was ready for. He was my age, someone I had known for a few months, a person I had spent time with, laughed with, grown comfortable around. The idea of being with him had lingered in my mind like a quiet whisper, a suggestion rather than a certainty. I found him attractive not just physically but in the way he spoke, the way he carried himself, the way he existed in the spaces we shared. I admired him, respected him, and felt drawn to him in a way that seemed natural, effortless, like something that had been waiting to happen all along. And then it did. We crossed that invisible line from friendship into something more, and for a brief moment, it felt like the right thing, the next step in some inevitable sequence. But almost immediately, something within me recoiled. It was as if a trapdoor had opened beneath me, and I was falling into a space I hadn't anticipated, a place where the warmth of admiration turned cold and unfamiliar. I found myself wanting out, suffocated by an invisible weight pressing against my ribs, an unease that had no name but made itself known with every passing moment. I couldn't understand it. How could someone who had seemed so golden from a distance suddenly feel so distant when he was finally within reach? It was as though a switch had been flipped, turning the light of my infatuation into a hollow shadow. I analyzed it, picked it apart in my mind, trying to grasp where things had gone wrong. We were different, our communication styles clashed in subtle but undeniable ways. The way he expressed himself, the way he processed emotions, the way he moved through the world, it all felt just slightly off from how I did. Not in a dramatic, explosive way, but in the kind of way that makes you realize, deep down, that something simply won't work in the long run. And yet, even beyond that, the truth was simpler and more confusing. My feelings had changed the moment the relationship became real. It didn't take long for us to face the reality of what was happening. There was no major argument, no betrayal or bitterness. Just the quiet acknowledgement of what we both already knew but hadn't wanted to say out loud. It wasn't right. It wasn't going to last. And so, in a conversation that was neither painful nor relieving, just necessary, we ended it. What followed was surprisingly easy. We had been friends before, and we simply returned to that space as though nothing had happened. There was no awkwardness, no resentment, no lingering wounds. It was as though the relationship had been a brief detour rather than a defining chapter, a moment of misalignment that we both recognized and corrected before it could lead to anything more painful. We laughed together again. We talked about the things we always had. There was a comfort in knowing that we could return to what we were before, unscathed, untouched by the brief attempt at something else. It felt like proof that we had made the right decision. And yet, even in that certainty, there was something else lingering beneath the surface, something I hadn't yet noticed. A quiet, waiting seed buried deep within, unnoticed and ignored. A thing that had no shape yet, no voice. But it was there. And it was waiting. It started slowly. At first, I barely noticed it, just a flicker of something strange, something unsettled. A tightening in my chest when I saw him smiling at his phone. A twinge of unease when he mentioned a new friend, a girl. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I was fine, that we had chosen our paths, that our friendship was still intact, untouched. But then, piece by piece, it crept in. He started flirting with her about a month ago. It was innocent at first, at least from the outside, an occasional mention of her name, a casual remark about a joke they shared. I barely reacted, brushing it off like a meaningless detail in the grand scheme of things. But then it became more frequent. A shift in his energy, a change in the way he moved through conversations with me. He was less present, less engaged, more absorbed in something else, something that wasn't me. And that was when I felt it, the return of that golden light, the same one that had surrounded him before we had ever been together. It made no sense. When we had dated, I had felt suffocated, repelled even, as though some invisible force was pushing me away. And yet, now that he was slipping further from my grasp, I saw him exactly as I had before, like something precious, something unattainable. Something I suddenly wanted more than anything. I told myself it wasn't jealousy. That was too petty, too childish. But I couldn't deny the way my stomach twisted when I imagined him with her. The way my mind played cruel, relentless loops of them together, of him giving her the attention he used to give me, the way he must look at her now. And even worse than the jealousy was the helplessness, the sheer panic of realizing that I had lost something I hadn't even wanted when I had it. And so, over the past month, I've been on what I can only describe as an emotional rampage. There's no other word for it, no way to soften it, no way to frame it as anything other than what it was, a downward spiral of desperation, of grasping at something already slipping through my fingers. I called him. Not just once, not just to check in. I called him in a frenzy, my voice shaking, my words sharp with frustration, demanding answers that I wasn't even sure I had questions for. Why was he pulling away? Why was he choosing her over me? Did he not care anymore? Had he ever cared? I didn't recognize myself, but I also didn't stop. I spam texted him. Messages in rapid succession, not giving him time to respond before another followed, and then another, a relentless flood of words, demands, accusations, apologies, pleas. When he didn't answer, the silence was unbearable, an open wound that only deepened my desperation. I cried to him. I cried because of him. I let him hear my broken voice, my shaking breaths, my barely coherent attempts to make sense of my emotions. I tried to remind him of what we had, of what we still were, as though I could will him back into seeing me the way he used to. And then, when that didn't work, I turned to something uglier. I tried to make him see her in a negative light. Subtle at first, casual remarks, offhand comments that planted seeds of doubt. Did he really think she was right for him? Did he know about her past? Was she even that interested, or was she just playing a game? When he dismissed it, when he brushed off my concerns with an easy confidence, it only fueled the fire in me. I tried harder, twisting conversations, looking for anything that might make him question her. I hated myself for it, but I couldn't stop. And then, the worst thing happened. He got together with her. Not just flirting, not just potential. A real relationship. A commitment. The thing that had once been ours, now fully hers. And suddenly, it was like everything inside me shattered at once. The panic intensified. The pain became unbearable. The knowledge that he was choosing her over me, that he had moved on while I was still drowning in the past, it was too much. And so, I kept going. The sporadic patterns of texting, ignoring him, then reaching out again, then lashing out, then apologizing, then demanding, then crying, then going silent before the cycle restarted. I don't know what I wanted. Maybe I just wanted to be acknowledged. Maybe I wanted to be told I still mattered. Maybe I wanted him to feel even a fraction of the torment I was putting myself through. But none of it changed anything. He was with her now. And I was spiraling into something I didn't know how to escape. It continues, an endless cycle of impulsive actions and regret, of desperation and self-loathing. I tell myself I'll stop, that this will be the last time I send a message, the last time I reach out, the last time I let myself spiral into this madness, but the silence always drags me back in. And then I find myself doing it again, caught in this exhausting, self-destructive loop. One moment, I'm sending messages in rapid succession, my mind racing faster than my fingers can type. Each text is a different shade of the same emotion: anger, sadness, frustration, longing. Demands for answers, passive-aggressive remarks, outright accusations. Then apologies. Then more anger. I convince myself that if I just say the right thing, if I just push in the right way, he'll understand. He'll realize what he's done to me, what he's taken away. He'll see that I still matter. But he never does. Or maybe he does, and that's why he's pulling away. The next moment, I go silent, convincing myself that this time, I'll regain control. I'll show him that I don't need him, that I can exist without his acknowledgement. I delete his messages, force myself not to look at my phone, pretend that I don't care. I tell myself that if I act like he doesn't exist, then maybe, just maybe, I'll start to believe it. But then the silence drags on for too long, and I break. I call him. I leave messages, my voice frantic, my emotions spilling over. Sometimes he answers, sometimes he doesn't. When he does, I lash out at him, demand explanations, accuse him of abandoning me. Other times, I cry, my words dissolving into gasps and sobs. And still, he remains distant, careful, measured. He doesn't match my energy. He doesn't fight back. He doesn't tell me what I want to hear. He just waits for me to run out of things to say. And then there are the moments when I try to be rational. When I tell myself that this isn't fair, that he doesn't owe me anything, that I have no right to ask for more than he's willing to give. I remind myself that he's never promised me more than friendship. That he has never led me on, never said anything to encourage these obsessive patterns. That, if anything, he has been patient. More patient than I deserve. But then I think about how he never texts first. How he never initiates. How he tells me we're still friends, that we should make plans, that we should still be in each other's lives but only on his terms. He tells me he can't give me the level of friendship I want, but I've never once given him a number, never once asked for a set amount of time. All I've asked for is something small, something simple. A message. A few words. Just enough to remind me that I'm not completely invisible to him. And yet, even that seems too much for him. But I know. Deep down, I know that this is not about him. This is about me. About something inside me that I can't control. Something bigger than just this situation. Something I don't fully understand. I've realized that what I'm doing is wrong. That this is mental abuse. That if I were in his position, I would feel suffocated, exhausted, drained. That no matter how much I try to justify it, my behavior is manipulative. It is selfish. It is cruel. And yet, the worst part is that even knowing all of this, I can't stop. I can see myself spiraling. I watch myself from the outside, detached, horrified, wondering how I became this person. I was never like this before. I was the kind of person who prided herself on being independent, on being logical, on being in control of her emotions. I was the one who gave advice to others, who reminded my friends that they were worth more than chasing after someone who didn't want them. And now, here I am, doing exactly that. I hate myself for it. I've called in sick to work because I can't focus. I can't sleep without waking up in the middle of the night, my stomach twisting in knots. I go through my days in a haze, my mind circling around the same thoughts, over and over. I replay conversations, I analyze his words, I pick apart every interaction for hidden meanings that probably don't exist. I feel like I'm losing my grip on reality, like I'm drowning in a storm of my own making. And the worst part? The part that makes me feel like the most pathetic person in the world? I wish he would block me. I wish he would make the choice for me because I can't seem to make it myself. I wish he would disappear from my life completely, erase himself from my world, force me to move on because I clearly don't have the strength to do it on my own. But he won't. Maybe he's too kind. Maybe he's afraid of what I might do if he does. Maybe he just doesn't care enough to bother. And so, the responsibility falls on me. I should block him. I should remove him from my life, set him free from the mess I've become. I should let him be happy with her, let him move forward without the weight of my emotions dragging behind him like an anchor. But I can't bring myself to do it. I can't take that final step, can't sever the last thread that keeps him connected to me. Because as much as I know that this is hurting me, as much as I know that I am my own worst enemy right now, the idea of truly losing him, of never hearing from him again, of closing that door forever, it terrifies me. It leaves me hollow. So, what do? I don't know. I don't see a way out. I don't see a path forward. I just see myself, standing in the wreckage of my own making, unable to move. The days blend together, a cycle of shame and exhaustion, of staring at my phone and then throwing it across the room, of pacing in my apartment, willing myself to stop thinking about him, only to fail and fall into another spiral. I feel sick, physically sick, like something is rotting inside me. The weight of my actions presses down on me, a suffocating force that I can't escape. I can't go back and undo what I've done. The messages I sent, the words I yelled, the desperation I threw at him like a net, hoping to reel him back, and it's all out there now, and I can't take it back. And worse than the guilt, worse than the self-loathing, is the fear. What if this isn't just about him? What if this is who I am? What if, no matter how much I move on, no matter who comes into my life next, I will always be this person who loses control, who drowns in her own emotions, who tears herself apart over something she logically knows she should let go of. The thought terrifies me, because if that's true, then there is no way forward. There is no clean break, no lesson to learn, no future where I'm better, stronger, healed. There is only this sinking, consuming, inescapable mess that I have made of myself. I haven't been to work. I can't focus on anything other than the way I feel, and I hate myself for that too. I keep waiting for the moment when I'll snap out of it, when I'll wake up and realize that none of this matters, that I'm free, that I can walk away and never look back. But that moment doesn't come. It never comes. Instead, I wake up every morning with the same ache, the same nausea, the same pounding in my chest, as my first thought is always him. Where he is. What he's doing. If he's with her. If he even thinks about me at all. And deep down, I know the answer. He doesn't. Not in the way I want him to. Maybe he thinks about me with frustration. Maybe he thinks about me with guilt. Maybe he thinks about me with pity. But he doesn't think about me in the way that keeps him up at night. He doesn't think about me the way I think about him. I know that. I have always known that. And yet, I've spent weeks, months trying to force something that doesn't exist, trying to squeeze water from a stone, trying to make something real out of the ghost of something that was never meant to last. And now, I don't know what's left of me. I keep thinking about blocking him. Every time I tell myself this is the moment, that this is the final straw, that I am stronger than this, I hover over the block button, my fingers shaking, my breath shallow. And then I don't do it. I tell myself I need to leave the door open just a little longer. That maybe I'll wake up one morning and feel differently. That maybe if I just wait a little longer, I won't have to block him because I won't care anymore. But that day hasn't come. And I'm starting to think it never will unless I force it. I tell myself that I deserve the hate that might come from this. That if people read my words and call me crazy, obsessive, manipulative, then they are right. They are saying the things I have already told myself in the darkest, quietest parts of my mind. They are confirming the truth I have been too afraid to fully accept, that I have been the villain in this story. That he didn't do anything wrong. That he only tried to live his life, to move on, to be happy, and I became a storm that refused to let him go. And yet, even knowing that, I still don't know how to stop. How do I move on from something that has wrapped itself around my identity? How do I let go of something that has consumed me so fully that I don't even know who I am without it? What if I do this again? What if this happens with the next person, and the next, and the next? What if I am fundamentally broken in a way that cannot be fixed? What if this isn't just about him? What if it's about me? I don't know the answers. And that terrifies me. But I know one thing. This cannot continue. Because if it does, I will become someone I cannot come back from. I will destroy myself piece by piece, until there is nothing left but regret, until I have burned every bridge, until I have driven away every person who ever cared about me. I will be alone. And maybe that's what I deserve. Maybe that's what needs to happen. But maybe, just maybe, there is another way. I don't know what it looks like yet. I don't know how to start. But I do know that if I don't find a way out of this, if I don't force myself to step away from the edge, then I will never escape the person I am in this moment. And I don't want to be this person anymore.